Spurs fans, I genuinely think I'm starting to understand what Tottenham's trying to build along with Roberto De Zerbi. And over the last 24 hours, we've had updates on Cristian Romero's future, Lucas Bergvall, Manor Solomon, Pape Matar Sarr, Malachai Hardy, Eli Junior Kroupi, Savinho. Plus, I'm going to discuss Tottenham's opening pre-season performances. Individually, it might seem like separate stories, but together they paint a picture of Tottenham's strategy for the rest of the summer. So let's get into it. So, hello everyone. Welcome back to the Tottenham Lens. If you're new here, it isn't just another Spurs transfer channel. We look at football, the reasons behind the headlines, and ask why Tottenham are making these decisions. If you enjoy this type of content, don't forget to subscribe. Now, let's start with arguably the biggest story, Cristian Romero. So, one story is that's refused to basically disappear this summer is Cristian Romero. It's been going on since, after the season's more or less ended and into the transfer window. Reports continue to suggest that Tottenham are actively exploring different possibilities regarding the Argentine defender. Now, before people start panicking, there is a huge difference between being open to offers and actively trying to sell a player. And the main thing is Tottenham is actively trying to sell the player. He's not part of Roberto De Zerbi's plans. And, Spurs want... I think the way they're going about their strategy for him is, I guess if it was him being sold to a Premier League club, they'll be looking for far more in terms of the transfer fee. At the moment, from what we can understand, his agents, his representatives are in discussions with Inter Milan. Just as I'm talking now, it seems like there's a basic framework in terms of the finances that Tottenham and Inter Milan have basically come up with, but there's still other avenues that need to be worked on. Again, like I've said in previous videos, Cristian Romero, he's had some good moments for us. He's had some really bad moments for us. He's had a lot of social media moments and outbursts and stuff. And, I think moving down this new path, this new era that we're going down, Cristian Romero, he doesn't seem very much part of it. And, I think as a fan base, we'll definitely thank him for the efforts he's put in for us in terms of the Europa League. He really led the team like a true leader that night. I think moving forward, I think him and the club are just on different paths now. So we just need to keep a lookout on things, because probably within the next week or so, Cristian Romero potentially could be an Inter Milan player. So we'll just have to keep looking on that. So Bergvall. This is another interesting one. The club's actively trying to find a solution in regards to his future. Now, Bergvall, he travelled on the pre-season tour. That obviously tells us something. With Bergvall travelling with the squad, I think it's a case of Roberto De Zerbi wanting to have spent some time with the player, get him to understand what he's trying to build at Tottenham, the type of football, etc. And obviously, Bergvall is a player. Players, they can go onto YouTube, they can talk to other players and find out what the manager's about. He doesn't need to go into pre-season tour to do that. But I think him going on a pre-season tour is a good thing, because it allows both Bergvall, both Roberto De Zerbi to have those sit-down talks and gain a bit more of an understanding of each other. Now, Roberto De Zerbi said from the off, he's willing to give everyone a chance. It's not based on, whether you're a wonder kid or your stats or whatever like that. It's about giving you a genuine chance to prove to him that you should be here. And if you don't want to be here, then obviously you keep it moving. My understanding of Bergvall is not that he necessarily wants to leave the club because, he's like, oh, this club's not going anywhere, it's not taking me places. It's more the fact that we've gone from having loads of games in the last 2 seasons to now having not enough games. And he's probably just wondering, where am I going to get this game time from? So again, you know, who knows? Things could develop. Bergvall could stay and very much be part of the club. Roberto De Zerbi's already, praised Bergvall, but Bergvall might just be like, nah, I need somewhere where I know that I'm going to be guaranteed to play. And that could be at Newcastle, could be at Forest. And maybe that links to another transfer that we might want to get down the line. Who knows? So that's another one, obviously, to look out for. I think Bergvall could be the key to some of the transfers that we're trying to make potentially, and certain moves. So who knows? Maybe he could be involved with the Bournemouth transfer if we were to try and go for Kroupi. Now, moving on to Bentancur. So Bentancur, he hasn't travelled. Naturally, that's going to raise concerns to the fan base, to the media. So rather than jumping to conclusions, which I probably am going to do, let's look at the several reasons, what could be there. So it could be a basis of workload management. Bentancur naturally could feel that he's come back from injury. Obviously, he was out from, he's injured during the season. He's come back from injury after being out for about 3 months or so. He's come back. He's worked hard to help us stay up. Played loads of back-to-back games. Played in the World Cup. And it's got to a case of, he might just have worked hard and might just need that extra bit of time off. Could be genuine. It could be his fitness levels. Not up to scratch. Obviously, this is what we've preseason for. It could be, again, giving him time to recover. But also, he might just have his own personalised preseason program. There's many aspects to it. But also, when players are not part of a squad for the preseason tour, which is the biggest part of preseason, you think to yourself, why are you not in that squad? Now, we look at Mohamed Kudus, genuine reason why he hasn't come. We look at Vicario, we know why he hasn't come. So now, it's a case of, it's Bentancur, is part of that whole process of where he could go. And if we're linking it up, pairing up with Bergvall, Bentancur, he's 28, 29, reaching his 30, he's in that era. And in my personal belief, my personal opinion, Bentancur hasn't been the same player for a while. He really hasn't. So when I look at things, it could be a case where Bentancur potentially goes. We try and keep Bergvall to be part of that squad. And, it gives him a chance to fight for his place. Who knows? We'll just have to see how that works out. But I think that could be another aspect to it. Now, another story that's been forever going on and on and on and on and on. Frustrating. Savinho. For me, it's a time of, obviously, yes, Tottenham want the deal done. If this was in Tottenham's control, the deal would have been done. And Savinho would have been a Tottenham player right now. Instead of Savinho having to constantly and follow Tottenham players and tell his teammates that he is going to be a Tottenham player. But the problem is Man City are controlling the whole narrative of this story. So a deal has been agreed in place, but Manchester City will not allow the player to leave until they find somebody else. But there's also been reports that Manchester City are trying to get more out of the deal. And, it wouldn't come to any surprise. Manchester City believe this player has a high ceiling. He has a massively high ceiling. They want to get as much money from this deal as possible, probably including part of that fee being more of that fee being upfront. So it allows them to fund the next winger that they go for. But they're not willing to allow that to happen until they bring in a new winger. Now at the moment, Manchester City's got Cinho, they've got Doku, they've got Foden who can play out wide, they've got Shirky who can play out wide. why do they need another winger? That's 4 wingers as it is. Yes, Foden can also play, in the middle of the park, but that's 4 wingers that they've got. Unless if, they're looking at Foden's long-term future being more centrally. But that's 4 wingers that they already got. But this is something we have to see. Savinho's got, he's direct in his play, elite 1v1 ability. Honestly, he's the type of player I want to see in a Spurs shirt. He's the type of player I want to see in a Spurs shirt because he's exciting, can use both feet, very unpredictable, can play both wings. Someone can create chances. Yes, we can talk about his goal scoring and stuff like that, but look at his season at Genoa, look at his first season in the Premier League. It's just been unfortunate. And in a team like Tottenham, he would excel because we all know De Zerbi wants to get his wingers in those 1v1 situations. Okay. Now, another big story that we've all been waiting for, Eli Junior Kroupi. So, he's one of the most exciting young forwards in Europe. Reports claim that Tottenham were willing to pay around 85 million, but Bournemouth rejected the approach. Now, more recently, suggestions are emerging that Bournemouth now value him higher than over 100 million. From my understanding, it's about 130 million euros. So we're looking about maybe 150 million pounds. That tells you everything. Bournemouth don't want to sell the player, which means Tottenham now face a decision. Do they wait and see how things pan out during the transfer window? Or do they move elsewhere? But I think the way this story could heat up, I think Tottenham will make an approach for him. It will be later down the window. It will be something this is something that's not over yet. But also, if we're going to go from, we have to make sure that we have enough time to allow Bournemouth to then get in a replacement. He's come off the back of a very good season. And this is a player that has versatility, but we've been looking forward to in terms of being able to play across the front line. But if we're going to do it, in my eyes, we need to do it now. We need to make sure we're placing that bid, and making sure that it allows Bournemouth to get in the extra player. Bournemouth is now in a season of being in Europe. They're looking to bolster their squad. Obviously, they don't want Eli Junior Kroupi to leave. But again, we need to give these teams time to be able to get a replacement. And so, again, this is a story which I'm guaranteeing you that is not over yet. We need to make sure that we just do things a bit quicker. Because if we can't get him in, then we need to be making sure that we're moving on to the next target, etc. A bit like what Paratici used to do. Used to have simultaneous discussions with various targets, and then obviously the club would discuss which would be the best one to go for. So we move on to Manor Solomon, a name that I didn't think I'd be mentioning after a long period of time. He's another player that's expected to leave Tottenham. He's attracted interest throughout the window, but it feels like he needs regular football. Spurs need to free up the space in the squad, and De Zerbi appears focused on bringing in different attacking profiles. Now, yes, Solomon has played in the preseason games, and it's a case of, yes, they are giving him a chance, but I think it's more of the case of managing fitness and workload for some of the returning players. And it's a good way of putting, Manor Solomon in the shop window. He has that bit, for me personally, he's a player I haven't seen in a while in terms of him playing. And, for other managers and for other teams, they might have taken a look at him over the last couple of games and gone, you know what, maybe he's someone we can bring in. And, I think he's a player that could end up leaving from anywhere from 5 to 10 million, so he will be a player who will definitely be leaving, and that's definitely 100% guaranteed. We move on to Malachai Hardy. Malachai Hardy is one of our youth prospects, and I will be talking further about him in terms of the preseason. But he's been linked with Leicester City, and this is a loan from my understanding. This could be a brilliant move for his development. It allows this young defender to gain minutes in a first team environment. Training with the first team or first team players allows for that development. Helps to sort of bridge the gap in terms of playing first team football and playing against different profiles and going through a whole schedule of having to play up to anything from 38 to 46 games per season, and finding the right loan is something we need to do properly. Under, if I correctly, Russell Martin, who is the Leicester City manager, I think he would be a great coach to help develop him. And I will be talking more about Malachai Hardy further throughout this video. Pape Matar Sarr, he's another one who is linked with a move out of the club. Roberto De Zerbi did say that Matar Sarr, he's part of his plans, but again, he's another one who hasn't travelled for the preseason tour. He's been previously offered to Brentford, who wasn't necessarily interested, but they've kept an eye on him. The situation could change before deadline day. Other teams like Fulham, Brentford have been interested. No one's really put forward a bid or anything, but Pape Matar Sarr will be a player that will leave Tottenham, whether it's in the Premier League or abroad. He's another one that we need to obviously highlight. Now, moving on, we have started our pre-season program. We played against MK Dons and we played against Auckland FC in 2 friendlies. Now, with these 2 friendlies, you could see that it was a chance to give the youngsters a chance to showcase themselves to us as fans, but mainly to obviously the manager. Now, through those friendlies, you could see that Tottenham are starting to really look at building their play, and you could see that from building up from the back, baiting the press, and starting to really implement those principles that we are trying to establish. So, with the 2 friendlies that we had, especially with playing the youngsters, I was impressed by the youngsters. I really was. Some of the players that really impressed me was one, Malachai Hardy. The way he played, he played a performance as if he was a seasoned vet already. He was partnered up at one point with Toka Takai, and both of them together had a very good partnership. Really enjoyed watching them play. Both of them working on baiting the press, slowly building up. Me as a coach, there's something that you want your centre backs to do at times, especially when you're playing up from the back, is getting your centre backs to push up the pitch, but comes to a certain point, you put your foot on the ball and you just stop the play. And this is for one of 2 things. One, to draw out one of their players to press you, so you then can move the ball on, and it means that there's a player out of position, but also it allows your team to get yourself set. So you put the ball in, your foot on top of the ball, that's a signal for your teammates to get themselves set, and then you almost might run, pass the ball or run a pattern of play, etc. So, Malachai Hardy, both Toka Takai put in very good performances there. Really enjoyed it. It was almost as if they've played together for a while, and that was a very good partnership to see. We move on to LWB. Trying to remember his first name. Anyway, Williams Barnett, a very exciting player. It's good to see him play. I've seen him in the youth team before, and very exciting player, very brave. Plays with no fear. It gives me that street footballer vibe. Growing up in a council estate, getting the ball at your feet, and all you want to do is just take players on. Plays with no fear, wants to run at players. Love it. That's what I love in football. Having players who, have that strong 1v1 ability, and want to, get the better of the opposition. And he done exactly that. He was linking up play, created a few chances, And again, another prospect to see, and it wouldn't surprise me. Obviously, it could be one of two ways. It could be that he stays with the first team, and it allows him to develop under our first team and gain minutes and stuff like that. Or it could be that we find him a very good loan in the Championship, maybe, or even League One. He's very young. He's 17, turning 18. Again, a player that I think that could really develop, and if he keeps his head on his shoulders, he could be someone that really pushes on for us. Another player that really impressed me as well, Fernandes, again, is exactly what we've been looking for. So obviously we paid 85 million for Fernandes from West Ham, and Fernandes, again, he put in a very, very, very good performance. Really enjoyed it. Really controlled that midfield in both games, especially when he came on against Auckland City. Again, the way he plays, you could see the second, Tonali's trying to go to receive the ball, he's already trying to play off him. And it's that partnership of one player almost playing deep, one player playing a bit high, and you're just working together. And honestly, it was great to see that, but also players who are willing to, one, take their time when necessary, but also identifying the triggers of when to switch the ball into space into those high wingers. And that is exactly what we want to see. Another player was Archie Gray. He played right back in one game, played centre mid in another game. Both performances was very good. It's pre-season, but again, you could see that there's a clear message for him in terms of how he plays, and he just dictated play, kept the ball moving, kept it ticking over, played some real good crosses into the box. But also, in terms of the way we were playing, it was great to also see the wing play that we're doing. So when I was watching the MK Dons game, there was various times, especially on the right hand side, where Archie Gray would play the ball into Manor Solomon. Manor Solomon would then play it into Gallagher, and then Archie Gray would make an overlap and run in behind, and then that would lead to a cross. So that's part of, you can see that's part of the principles of how De Zerbi wants to play with that wide player. And if it's not a case of the winger getting the cross in or that final ball into the box, it's then the right back or the left back. But also, again, another one was great to see was, and we all know this one, where the center, the 10 and the number 9 drop in, and that led to one of our attacks where I think Richarlison got the ball, held it up, played it back. The ball then got switched over to the left hand side into Tell then puts in a cross. Then didn't get a goal from it, but it shows exactly the intent and what we're trying to build. And I do think in the next game, what we play tomorrow, which will be against... That is a good question. Who are we playing tomorrow? Sydney FC. When we play against Sydney, I think we will see more of our link-up play. We will also see some of the, our regular first-team players, I think, as well. I think the first two games were there just to allow the youngsters to play. I do think the youngsters will play in some of the, the next couple of games as well. But I think we'll see more of our first-team players in those games as well. So, yeah. So, when you put all these stories together, I actually think Tottenham's strategy becomes a lot more clearer. So, we're moving players, obviously, that aren't central to the project. We're protecting, we're going to protect the academy players by finding the right loans and projects for them. Obviously, we've seen some of those academy players get moved on, etc., rather than holding on to them for ages and, they're going they're devalue in terms of their fee, or they're going a free. We're continuing to chase explosive attacking players. Roberto De Zerbi's already said that he needs his forward players, his wingers, etc. We're only selling major assets if the deal generally makes sense, and and give Roberto the exact squad profile he wants. The next 5 weeks, the next few weeks that generally sort of like define Tottenham's season in terms of finishing what we want at the top. So my question to you guys are, what do you make of everything happening at Spurs? Would you sell Romero? Should Tottenham break the bank for Kroupi? Do you think Savinho eventually arrives? And who impressed you the most during pre-season so far? Let me know down in the comments. If you've enjoyed today's video, don't forget to like, subscribe to the Tottenham Lens, and turn your notifications on so you don't miss any more Spurs updates. Until next time, come on you Spurs.